Welcome to Bonds After Baby. I'm LMFT Evie Empress, and I'm here to help you and your family relationships experience more relief and connection during the stage of pregnancy, postpartum, and early parenthood. Remember to subscribe for my podcast here and on YouTube, and sign up to my email list on my website, bondsafterbaby.com, for free resources for your family. I'm really sorry I didn't post an episode last week. We got back from an international trip, and for some reason, I thought through jet lag and unpacking and a laundry frenzy with 2 kids, I'd have the energy to record, but I did not. But from now on, I'll be recording weekly on Mondays. We just got back from 2.5 months in Greece with our family. And in this episode, I'd like to share some of my personal experiences as a mom of two, of a 10-year-old and a toddler. What I was navigating and how my family relationships and friendships shaped the experience. I was surrounded by a much bigger community of people there, and my daily life of parenting was very different as a result. I'm also going to discuss the difference that makes for moms and parents, whether you have community or don't. And this should really depathologize a lot of the struggles mothers face when they handle things on their own. There's a reason why it's not supposed to be that way, and moms are too hard on themselves when they struggle as they're just in a kind of a solitary experience as a parent. So, mom to mom, I'm going to share my personal experiences first and then get into what we know about community and how that should change our perception of our roles as parents. So I'm going to start with the flights. Oh, the flight. So look, I've traveled every year with my older daughter since she was 4 months old, once or twice a year. And I'm an experienced traveler with kids, but I remember how hard it is in the toddler years. It's other level, I think, in that age, when they're not babies anymore and they don't just like sleep and eat the whole flight versus when they're like 3 or 4 and up and they can kind of either watch a screen or play a little bit. And so mine was 17 months when we traveled to Greece. And I was traveling alone with both kids. My husband met us in Greece later when he could. So I booked an evening flight, hoping, hey, once we get on the flight, they'll both sleep. Well, we ended up being delayed 6 hours. We boarded on one flight and then got delayed. We were waiting on the flight. Then they made us exit the plane. When we were exiting the plane, I pulled out one of our backpacks from the upper cabin, and the zipper broke as I was bringing it down. And I just wanted to cry. And then I saw my daughter looking up at me. So I just feigned an appearance of looking collected and said, yep, this is frustrating. We're going to get through it. And we did, but it was really hard. So once we got off that flight, we had to walk across the airport to another gate. And waited another 4 hours there to board. It was really rough. My toddler was not sleeping. He was totally overstimulated, very restless. My daughter was exhausted. I will say it was very heartening that everyone was extremely kind. People were offering to help me left and right through the evening. And finally, we made it on the flight, and my son was so depleted that he passed out for most of the flight. So at least he did sleep during the traveling. And once we finally got to our apartment, as I was carrying him into the elevator to go up to our apartment, he peed on me. So it was just the perfect end to a horrid travel experience. But I will say what made it better is that I had asked my sister-in-law and mother-in-law to come so we could see each other on our first day in. And I was just able to walk in, hand him to them, and go shower immediately. So I was very lucky. I guess that's my first example of just how amazing it was to be surrounded by people and family on that trip. The other thing I wanted to talk about was changing scenery. So we're all different as parents, but for me, I really like to change scenery and be in different places. A lot I love to travel. And I think with the routine of parenthood, that can often feel like Groundhog Day. It's like the same thing every day. I know that it's very rare to have this ability to change things up this way. And we're very lucky to do so. But this was really helpful to me just to be in a different country, even through diaper changing, dealing with tantrums, cooking, all of that stays the same. But being in a different place made everything just feel more fun and fresh. Juggling work with parenting was actually easier for me there. We didn't do any camps. Because of the time difference, I was able just to have the daytime with my kids, see family, friends, go to the beach, go to museums. And then in late afternoon and evening, I did my work. I saw clients. And sometimes, I had help, obviously, with people to put my son to sleep during that time and be with him. My daughter doesn't really need a babysitter anymore. Juggling the age difference between my kids was interesting. Those of you, I don't know if any have any listeners who also have kids with really big age gaps will understand this. Again, I have a toddler and a now 11-year-old. She was 10 during the trip. They're around 9 years apart and they love each other a lot. My toddler would play with my older daughter all day long if he could. He adores her. But of course, my older daughter naturally has a cap. After like 45 minutes or an hour, she wants to do things with me or my husband that we can't bring our son for. So it was a lot of dividing and conquering. So I had some help until my husband came, and then sometimes we would separate so our daughter could enjoy activities with one of us that my son just can't partake in. I mean, he couldn't be out for hours in the heat. The sun is very strong there. So sometimes, he would stay in the afternoon and we would go out and take her to a museum or just take her for longer hours to the beach or something like that. Um, Managing expectations was a big one. So there were definitely days where I was chuckling to myself, noticing that I needed to take my own advice from my episode about vacationing with kids. I think that was like 2 or 3 episodes ago. So, of course, there were times that were incredible, right? Like watching my kids enjoy their cousins and grandmother and aunts and uncles that they don't see all winter, and seeing them enjoy the same beaches and playgrounds I grew up with in my summers in Greece as a kid. Watching my daughter develop her Greek language skills, and my toddler's vocabulary ended up exploding while we were there. So, getting to hear him speak mostly Greek was really adorable. And even coming back, like most of his words are Greek now. Nobody understands him here. Anyway, and there were times where I was hoping for just quiet and just relaxing. And that just, there are many times where that's just not going to happen. Parenting doesn't stop because you're on a trip, right? We all know this. So one day in particular, I was expecting like a relaxing mother-daughter afternoon at the beach. We had left our my toddler behind, and I thought, okay, she's almost 11. It's not the same, as when they're little. We're going to have a really nice time. We'll read our books. And then my daughter started sharing, some emotional issues she was having around that time. She was feeling a bit jealous of her new brother, which is totally natural, and that it's hard sometimes to adjust. And that morning had been especially crazy with lots of toddler tantrums, and I really was just dying to have some compressing time at the beach. So, in that moment when she brought all this up with me, a part of me just wanted to shut off and enjoy this time I'd been looking forward to for months. But we don't just stop being parents. So I listened and helped her process her feelings for a big chunk of time that we were there. And that's fine. There were other times where I got to relax, but I did have, I think, a fantasy and an unrealistic expectation that I would have more times of just solitary relaxing, which wasn't a realistic expectation. There were many moments like this with both kids where I thought, oh, we can relax now, and it just didn't happen that way. I always need this reminder every summer, even though I know this. And so, I just noticed that I still held on to this fantasy about the solitary time that wasn't realistic. I even brought 12 books to read, but of course, I didn't even get to half of them. I don't even know what I was thinking. Um, but I did ask for alone time, and I got it, several times during the few months. I'm very grateful for that. So, with my husband's help and a babysitter and my mom sometimes, and that was very replenishing for sure. Again, I know I'm very lucky for that. A lot of moms do not get that. We also baptized our son at the end of the summer, and baptisms are a big deal in our religion. And so it was a lovely celebration with our closest friends and family there. And because our son was a miracle baby, really, and he came to us despite many, many odds against us. Doctors gave us like a 6% chance of getting pregnant. And I also had many scares during pregnancy. It felt so good to have a really big event in honor of him and the joy that he's bringing our whole family. We had lots of fun times in beautiful places, having cultural experiences and great food, right? But I will say the most profound, comforting, special moments really came from being with our large network of relatives and friends there. And this is the real crux and point of the podcast today. This is what I walked away with at the end of the summer, that everything was more fun and was so much easier with a village of people. Just some small examples. Like one of my cousins would stop by on her day off from work and we'd drink a coffee and she'd play with my toddler and she would talk with my daughter and have these really nice talks. And those few hours that came over were just lovely. And I was just thinking what a difference this is to when I'm alone in the house just trying to entertain the kids. Let's say if my husband's still working or if it's a weekend where he's doing odd jobs and I'm really alone, like it's just not as fun as when you're with other people and other adults. Um, my aunt and uncle live in the apartment below us, and we would stop by almost daily, and they'd feed the kids the most wonderful fruits they got from the local outdoor market. And I really think this was one of the brightest spots in my kids' day. When we left for the airport, my son was yelling, Thea, Thea, which means aunt, pointing to her home. And I know he's just going to miss them so much, my daughter too. I had a health crisis as well during the trip. So I've had a slip disc in my lower back from after my first child was born. I'm sure a lot of moms can relate to this that, like, once you have kids, you can have some health problems afterwards just from carrying them or from, complications after birth or anything. So I've had this chronic, these chronic back issues after my first daughter. And since having my second, my back pain has been really aggravated. And my toddler is quite tall and a really, really big boy. So, I mean, he's like in size 384T right now, and he's 19 months. So lifting him is really hard on my body. And my back went out, and I was bedridden for 4 days. And then for 3 days afterwards, I was just walking very carefully with a lot of pain still. And during that time, I was very lucky and had help from my husband, my aunt, and my mother. And I couldn't stop thinking about how I'd get by without this help. I honestly don't know what I would have done if I didn't have them there. And I couldn't stop thinking, what do mothers do when they're without a family or a community to be there for them when things like this happen? I was just ruminating on that so much because there are so many people who don't have help. I really have no idea how I would have gotten by. It was just such a nightmare. Um, we spent a few weeks in our island from where our families originate, Carpathos, and we stayed in my grandmother's home. And in this village, all the homes are clustered together on a mountain. It's a real community, very old world, right? So you're literally surrounded by people. One day, my daughter's ear hurt, and before we could make an appointment with the local doctor, she needed some medicine for the pain. And I just walked, I'm talking like 15 seconds to the left of our home, and a neighbor who has a granddaughter my daughter's age gave us a whole bottle of pain reliever. And when I offered, to pay her or to get her a new one, she just wouldn't have it. She was like, no, I'm going to get mad. Just take it. Please don't even say another word. So much generosity of spirit there. And once I got the medicine to my doctor, right, another 15 seconds to get back to my house, I went back and we sat and we had some fruit and tea together. And, this is just a small snapshot of so many moments of village life. This is just what it's like. Wherever we walk, we see people we know or people that have known our parents and grandparents. And it was our son's first summer in Greece, and everyone was just so thrilled to meet him. I was never lonely. My husband and I, he's more of an introvert than I am, but, even he enjoys just the camaraderie, the warmth that you feel when you're surrounded by people that you've just known since you were a little kid. It's really lovely. And there's just always someone to have a conversation with or to play with your kids. They just have so many more people around them, and it's wonderful. So all of this may seem like it's an idyllic picture. I do want to say, of course, there were still conflicts to navigate in relationships and moments of being tapped out physically or mentally. But I'm just saying all of that was easier to navigate with people around me. Parents, mothers, all parents, fathers, to everybody needs community. It's become more and more normal, of course, in our culture and our societies to be more solitary in parenting, and it's just too much pressure. It's just a 180. I just noticed how much more fun parenting was and how much easier it was with so many people. There's a woman, Elena Bridges, who talks a lot about this. She has an Instagram page and a Substack, I believe. And she discusses research about hunter gatherer lifestyles and how different life was for parents when people were raising families in tribes or communities of people. You can check her out. So, why are moms so pathologized when they have a hard time parenting in modern day life? Why are moms pathologizing themselves when they struggle? This makes me really upset. It's not natural to be doing mostly everything or everything on your own. Even, with two parents, even when there's two parents, my husband and I are, we share everything. We really help each other, but it's still a lot. It's too stressful, too many details, too much labor, too much mental load. We aren't meant to live on islands or raise kids on islands. Parents are overloaded, right? So, what do we get from community? We get mentorship and guidance from fellow parents and older generations, emotional support to share struggles, get validation or encouragement, practical help. This is my favorite. More hands on deck just makes things so much easier. Less stress, right? When there's more practical help and emotional help, you're going to have less stress. Your nervous system is going to be calmer. When we are calmer, of course, that's going to affect our mental health and our physical health. And it also helps with just having a more positive, optimistic experience of being a parent with your children. Also, I think it just increases the sense of meaning in our lives. Rich relationships and supportive relationships add meaning to us and our children's lives. Research consistently indicates that moms who have a strong network of community support have much less anxiety, much less depression, and more positive outlooks on parenting and on their children. So, encouragement and a sense of belonging really buffer against stress and help with resilience and coping with challenges. There's always going to be challenges as a parent. So, this reduction of stress on parents also, of course, has a direct effect on child development because children are going to benefit from less stressful environments. And they're also observing how healthy relationships function and social connections. I want to remind you, I've talked about this a lot in other, episodes, but I want to remind you when I'm talking about healthy relationships and connections, that doesn't mean that they're without conflict. All relationships will have conflict, but it's also great for them to see us navigate conflict in healthy ways most of the time. We're not perfect, right? Like 70 or 80% of the time with our loved ones, and for them to see that. Okay. So, I don't know, are there ways you can increase the sense of community support where you are? Sometimes online groups can offer meetups for parents, or faith groups can be another great resource, or engaging with neighbors who have similarly aged kids. And I'm honestly sorry that we have to put so much effort into something that should be built into our lives. I hope that you have at least a small but strong network of support. And if you don't, I hope there are ways that you can reach out to increase your people. I'd love to hear your experiences with or without community as a mom, so comment below. If you have questions for future episode topics, please share them on my YouTube page or on Spotify. So please subscribe to my podcast and my YouTube channel, Bonds After Baby, so you get notified when there's a new episode. And sign up for my email list at bondsafterbaby.com to get free resources in your inbox. I'm here for you and your family. See you next week. Bye.